The government has failed in its bid to forfeit monies and seized assets from Datuk Seri Najib Razak and his family, Taek Jho's mother, and ex-Goldman Sachs banker Roger Ng Chong Hua and his wife, in the case of the former Prime Minister Datin Sri Rosmah Mansor, Noriana Najwa Najib, Nur Ashman Najib, and Riza Shahriz Abdul Aziz. Judge Muhammad Zaini Mazlan ruled that there were no credible attempts made to show the link between the properties seized and the unlawful activities. He said there was also no evidence to show that the properties seized were bought using the monies in Najib's bank accounts. He likewise dismissed the forfeiture of assets of Jolo's mother, Puan Sri Go Gekwi, and Ng and his wife. However, Justice Zaini allowed the forfeiture actions against the respondents who did not contest against the applications, and also those who had absconded from Malaysia, namely former 1MDB officers Ki Kok Tiam, Tan Ven Tak, and Ge Cho Hun. In total, the government has managed to recover almost half of the over 31 million ringgit worth of assets it had froze or seized from 18 individuals in relation to 1MDB. Serba Dinamik is taking legal action against Bursa Malaysia to challenge the stock exchange's directives concerning the requirement to conduct a special independent review and to disclose the findings of the review. The oil and gas company, which filed a lawsuit against its former auditor KPMG over the audit disputes, announced today that it filed an originating summons against Bursa at the KL High Court last Wednesday. It argues the stock exchange is acting in excess of power. Serba Dinamik is also seeking interim injunctive relief against Bursa, pending the full and final disposal of the originating summons to restrain the stock exchange from making any announcements or making available to anyone the factual findings updates prepared by Ernst & Young Consulting, which is undertaking an independent review of the group's financial accounts. It also wants to bar Bursa from issuing any directives and giving any notice to the company and its directors to show cause for any purported breach of the main market listing requirements. Additionally, Serba Dinamik, whose share price has plunged 78% since its audit issues were made public, is also seeking damages against Bursa. The application for interim injunctive relief is fixed for hearing this Thursday, while the case management for the originating summons has been fixed on next Wednesday. Genting Malaysia's outdoor theme park is one step closer to opening its doors to the public as it starts conducting technical rehearsals. In response to the Edge's email query, a company spokesperson said selected rides in Genting SkyWorld's theme park have been opened to employees and certain guests. More details will be announced in due time. Gaming analysts expect the park to be opened by next month if all goes well, and the tickets could be priced between 150 ringgit to 300 ringgit. When contacted, Maybank Investment Bank research analyst Yin Xiaoyang said that on a financial year basis, he expects the theme park to attract 3 million patrons with 200 ringgit average spend per patron. He assumed a 30% earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation and amortization or EBITDA margin. This will result in a decent 180 million ringgit EBITDA per annum, not enough to offset 330 million ringgit depreciation per annum. But he is expecting Genting SkyWorlds to drive growth in Resorts World Genting's visitor arrivals to 26 million to 27 million per annum versus the pre-COVID-19 high of 24 million. Yin said, assuming 150 ringgit average mass market gaming revenue per patron and 40% EBITDA margin, the extra visitors to the resort will accrete 120 million ringgit to 180 million ringgit to EBITDA per annum. He also believes this will have positive implications for Genting Malaysia's share price in the lead up to the opening of Genting SkyWorlds later this year. He kept his buy call on the stock with a 3 ringgit 40 cent target price. The counter closed 1.3% higher today at 3 ringgit 17. Malaysia and Singapore will launch a vaccinated travel lane or VTL between KLIA and Changi Airport on November 29th. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob and his Singapore counterpart Lee Hsien Loong said in a joint statement that under the VTL, fully vaccinated travellers will be able to travel between Singapore and Malaysia and be subjected to COVID-19 tests in lieu of serving quarantine or the stay-home notice. The two Prime Ministers also look forward to restoring travel across the land links between the two countries in the near future. Separately, Health Minister Khairi Jamaluddin said Malaysia is ready to discuss with the United Kingdom on opening a similar VTL for its fully vaccinated citizens. Khairi and Foreign Minister Datuk Saifuddin Abdullah met with UK Secretary of State for Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Affairs Elizabeth Truss today. According to Bernama, Khairi said he had informed Truss of Malaysia's hopes that the UK will consider allowing Malaysian Sinovac vaccine recipients to enter the UK without having to undergo quarantine. Currently, only Malaysian travellers who have received certain types of vaccines are allowed to enter the UK without having to self-isolate for 10 full days. Bursa Malaysia has issued an unusual market query as Malaysian Genomics Resource Centre or MGRC's share price plunged as much as 28% in intraday trade. The counter slumped to RM1.44 before paring some losses to close at RM1.64, still down by some 18% for a market capitalisation of RM203.7 million. On November 3rd, MGRC announced the iConcept Global Growth Fund, which previously held an 8.69% interest in the company, had ceased to be its substantial shareholder following the disposal of 4.69 million shares. And in a filing dated November 1st, it updated that it had until December 23rd to submit a plan to Bursa Securities to regularise its condition. MGRC fell into the red in FY21 with a net loss of RM4.29 million from a net profit of RM17.1 million a year ago. This was mainly because the previous financial year recorded a profit net of tax from discontinued operations. In its results filing then, MGRC was optimistic about its prospects, citing its diversification into biopharmaceutical and healthcare products and services.